Europe. This continent is the home of over 150,000 castles, countless ancient ruins, endless forests, and haunting caves. Many of them are just that: a forest or a castle. However, just as many of them carry a dark energy full of mystery that have remained for centuries. Are you afraid of the dark? Do you believe in the paranormal? Or are you just here for a chilling ghost story? Whatever brought you here today, I hope you will be intrigued by what I'm about to tell you, because here is my top 10 scariest places in Europe. Number 10. Quinta da Higueleira, Portugal. In the town of Sintra, Portugal, there's a place that feels like it's straight out of a storybook. Quinta da Higueleira. Built in the early 1900s for a wealthy Brazilian businessman, this place is more than just a stunning estate. It's a mysterious maze of symbols, hidden meanings, and strange architecture that has fascinated people for years. The most striking feature of Quinta da Higueleira is its gardens. They seem to go on forever, with winding paths, secret caves, and eerie wells. One of the most intriguing parts is the initiation well, a deep, spiral shaft that stretches 27 meters down into the earth. It wasn't built for water, but for something much stranger. Some say it was used for secret Freemason rituals. Others link it to the Templar Knights. As you walk down the narrow staircase into the well, there's this feeling that you're being led somewhere ancient, to something hidden beneath the surface. Every part of the estate seems to be hiding something. The architecture is full of secret symbols, cryptic messages and allegories. The small chapel, the towers, the crypt, they all tell a story. The designs mix elements of Christianity, alchemy, and occult traditions, leaving visitors with more questions than answers. Some of the rooms even have hidden symbols carved into the walls or concealed in the woodwork. It feels like the place is built around mysteries, and you're just beginning to scratch the surface. The gardens themselves have a way of disorienting you, like you're walking in circles. Visitors sometimes report sudden drops in temperature, and there's a strange energy that lingers in the air. Some claim to hear footsteps when no one's around, or see shadows moving in the corners of their vision. Number 9. Château de Brissac, France. Château de Brissac, located in the Loire Valley of France, is one of the most haunted castles in the country, with a history filled with betrayal, murder, and ghostly encounters. Built in the 11th century, the chateau was home to generations of the Brissac family, but it's the tragic events of the 15th century that have left their mark. Charles de Brissac, after discovering that his wife, Isabelle, was having an affair with Jacques de Saumur, brutally murdered both Isabelle and her lover. The tragic unalivings took place in the very room where Isabelle once lived, and since then, her spirit is said to haunt the chateau. Isabelle's ghost is often seen wearing a green gown, and she is known as La Dame Verte, the Green Lady. Visitors frequently report seeing her walking through the castle's halls, especially near the room where she was unalived. When her ghost appears, it's said that the temperature drops, and some claim to feel an overwhelming sense of sadness in the air. The chateau has a heavy atmosphere, with many witnesses describing unexplained occurrences such as strange noises, the sound of footsteps, and doors opening and closing on their own. The haunting doesn't end with Isabelle. In the 17th century, one of the Brissac family's sons fell to his death from the tower, and his spirit is also believed to haunt the chateau. Some visitors to the tower say that they hear footsteps when no one is around, or experience an unsettling feeling, as if they're not alone. Some even claim to have seen a figure near the tower, still lingering after all these years. Despite the dark history, Château de Brissac remains a private residence but is open to the public for tours. Its stunning architecture and rich history make it a popular destination, but the chilling tales of the Green Lady and the restless spirits make it much more than just a beautiful castle. Number 8. Lindholm Høje, Denmark. Lindholm Høje, located just outside Aalborg, Denmark, is one of the most fascinating Viking burial sites in Europe. This ancient place has stood for over 1,000 years, with over 700 Viking graves scattered across the hillside. Dating back to the 5th century, the site remained in use well into the Viking Age. The graves are marked by burial mounds and stone settings, many containing weapons, urns, jewelry, and other items that reveal details about the lives of the people buried there. The graves aren't just ordinary resting places. They belong to warriors, leaders, and other significant figures based on the artifacts left behind. Once a thriving settlement, Lindholm Høje feels like a different world today. Visitors often remark on the strange atmosphere. There's a sense of something lingering in the air, like the place holds on to its past in an almost physical way. The stillness is unsettling, with some people claiming to feel as though they're being watched. In the quiet of the landscape, there are even reports of distant footsteps or the sound of metal clinking, though no one is around. The wind moves through the stone markers in eerie ways, adding to the mystery of the place. The energy here is palpable, as if time doesn't pass in the same way as it does in other places. The graves at Lindholm Høje are varied in their design. Some are marked with intricate stone patterns, while others are just simple mounds of earth. Many of the graves show signs of violence, with weapons placed beside the bodies, possibly to protect them in the afterlife. These details suggest that individuals buried here were no ordinary people, but perhaps warriors, or even revered gods. It's clear that whoever was buried at Lindholm Høje held an important place in the Viking society. Even though the site has been abandoned for centuries, it continues to attract visitors from around the world. People are drawn to the place by its history and the eerie energy that lingers. Some say they feel a strong connection to the past while walking among the graves, as though they can feel the presence of the Vikings who once lived and passed here. Number 7. Halshani Castle, Belarus. This medieval fortress has stood in ruins for centuries. But it's not just the crumbling walls that attract people. It's the ghost stories that make this place unforgettable. Built in the early 1600s by Pavel Stefan Stapieha, a member of one of the most powerful noble families in the region, Halshani Castle was once a symbol of wealth and influence. But over the years, wars, fires, and neglect left it in shambles, and today it's known more for its paranormal activity than its history. The most famous legend tied to Halshani Castle is the story of the Black Monk. According to the story, during the castle's construction, a young monk fell in love with a noblewoman living there. The relationship was forbidden, and when it was discovered, the monk was bricked alive into the castle walls as a punishment. Ever since, people claim his restless spirit has been trapped in the ruins, roaming the grounds dressed in black robes. But he's not the only one haunting the place. There's also the legend of the White Lady, believed to be Hanna Halshanka, a woman from a noble family who was betrayed and unalived by her own relatives. Her grieving spirit is said to wander the castle, forever searching for peace. And then, there's something even more chilling. In the 1980s, during an archaeological dig, a human skeleton was found hidden inside one of the walls. The identity of the skeleton remains a mystery, but many believe it could be the Black Monk himself, finally uncovered after centuries. People who visit Haljani Castle report some pretty terrifying experiences. Many have seen figures moving through the ruins, doors slamming on their own, and felt unexplainable cold spots. Some say they've heard low voices when no one else was around. And let's not forget the objects that mysteriously move, or the creeping feeling that someone's watching you from the shadows. Locals believe that the castle is cursed, and that the Sapieha family's dark history left behind a spiritual stain that will never go away. Others think the spirits are still there because they were never properly laid to rest. Whatever the reason, Haljani Castle isn't just a pile of rocks, it's a paranormal hotspot. Even now, people visit to see if they can catch a glimpse of the Black Monk or the White Lady. And whether or not you believe in ghosts, there's something undeniably eerie about the idea of standing in the place where someone was buried alive. Number 6. The Crooked Forest, Poland. Have you ever seen something in nature that just doesn't make sense? Trees that shouldn't grow the way they do. A place that feels wrong for no clear reason. That's exactly what you'll find in one of Poland's strangest mysteries, the Crooked Forest. Nearly 400 pine trees stand here, but they aren't like any trees you've seen before. Their trunks bend, all curving northward in a way that looks almost deliberate. And yet, no one knows why. There are theories, but none are confirmed. One theory is that the farmers of the 1930s shaped the trees for furniture making or shipbuilding, but there is no record of this practice in the area. If it was intentional, why stop at just this patch of forest? Another theory takes a darker turn. Some believe the forest was a site of Nazi experiments during World War II. Rumors suggest they were testing biological manipulation of plants. Could the bent trees be the result of these experiments? Then, there are paranormal theories. Some say it's a UFO landing site, warped by radiation. Others believe it sits on a portal to another dimension, causing the trees to grow unnaturally. One local legend tells of villagers who disappeared during a pagan ritual in the 1930s. According to this story, something went horribly wrong, leaving the trees and their spirits warped forever. Visitors report feeling disoriented and uneasy in the forest. Some describe sudden temperature drops, hearing branches snapping, and catching whispers in the wind. There are also stories of compasses malfunctioning, pointing in all directions except north. It's the kind of place where you feel watched when no one's around. Unlike haunted castles or chapels, this isn't a place with walls and shadows. It's open, quiet, and alive. Yet something feels off. The biggest mystery? Why do the trees all bend north? The bends are uniform, and after the curve, the trees grow straight again. How does that happen naturally? It doesn't. The Crooked Forest is a place where nature and mystery collide. Whether it's the work of humans, aliens, or something else unexplained. One thing is certain. It's unlike anywhere else in the world. Number 5. House of the Seven Chimneys, Spain. The House of the Seven Chimneys in Madrid is often considered the most haunted house in Spain. Built in the 16th century, this mansion has a chilling history, and it's the stories surrounding its past that have earned it the reputation of being one of the most haunted locations in the country. The house gets its name from its 7 chimneys, but it's the dark events that happened inside that have made it infamous. One of the earliest tales involves a young servant who passed mysteriously within the house. Some say she was murdered, while others claim she passed trying to escape her cruel fate. Her ghost is said to haunt the upper floors, often seen in a long white gown. She's just one of many spirits who are believed to still roam the house. The mansion's history took a darker turn in the late 17th century when it was owned by the Duke of Lemos. The Duke's wife, trapped in a loveless marriage, had an affair with a man, which led to a series of tragic events. Some say the Duke, in a fit of rage, unalived his wife and her lover, and that their restless spirits, along with others who passed violently in the house, remained trapped within its walls. Over the years, countless visitors have reported strange occurrences. People have heard footsteps when no one is around, seen shadowy figures in the corners of rooms, and experienced sudden drops in temperature. The most famous ghost of the house is that of the young woman in white, often seen walking through the hallways, only to disappear into the walls. There are also accounts of disembodied voices, whispers, and doors opening on their own. Today, the House of the 7 Chimneys is still a private residence, but its dark history and haunting presence continues to draw curiosity. The combination of the tragic events that took place here and the numerous reports of paranormal activity make it one of the most unsettling and haunted locations in Spain. The spirits of the house are said to still linger, their stories locked away behind its walls, as the mansion keeps its secrets well guarded. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, there's no denying the eerie atmosphere of this infamous house. Number 4. The Convent of the Capuchin Friars, Italy. This is not only known for its religious history, but also for its connection to one of Italy's most chilling stories of alleged possessions and exorcism. The Convent of the Capuchin Friars is located in the heart of Gubbio, a town full of charm with its narrow streets and ancient buildings. But beneath the town's picturesque surface lies an unsettling chapter of its past, one tied to a young woman and a struggle against something far darker than anyone expected. In the 18th century, a woman from a nearby village began to exhibit some strange and violent behavior. It started innocently enough, a series of unusual moods and physical afflictions, but soon escalated. She began speaking in languages she had never learned. Her body contorted in unnatural ways, and an otherworldly strength seemed to take hold of her. This was no ordinary illness. It was something far worse, something no one knew how to explain. Desperate, the villagers turned to the Capuchin friars of Gubbio, hoping their religious rituals and exorcism practices could rid the woman of whatever force had taken hold of her. What followed was something that terrified not only the townspeople, but also the priests. The young woman was said to levitate during the exorcism. Her voice changed, and she displayed strength that no human should possess. This was not just a possession. It was a battle between good and evil. Though the woman was eventually believed to have been freed, the haunting events left a mark on the convent itself. Visitors have reported unsettling experiences ever since. Strange movements, disembodied voices, and an oppressive sense of fear that seems to hang in the air. It's hard to say exactly what happened inside those walls, but one thing is certain: the Capuchin friars carries with it a dark and disturbing energy that many believe is tied to that tragic possession. Number 3. Borgvattnet, Sweden. Borgvattnet. a tiny village tucked away in the northern reaches of Sweden, is home to one of the country's most infamous haunted locations, the Borgvattnet Vicarage. Now, this isn't just your run-the-mill spooky house. There's something about the place that has captured the imagination of locals and visitors alike for over a century. It's not just because it's isolated deep in the forest, but because of the chilling history that seems to haunt it. The vicarage was built in the late 1800s to provide a home for the local priest and his family. But what was meant to be a peaceful refuge quickly turned into a site of mystery. It started off with small, unsettling noises, creaky floorboards, faint footsteps when no one was around, and whispers that couldn't be traced. But it wasn't just the sounds that were off. Some claimed to see figures in the windows, figures that disappeared when they went outside to investigate. One of the most spine-chilling stories come from the wife of one of the priests who lived there. According to the tale, she became convinced that the vicarage was haunted. Her fear grew so intense that she reportedly lost her mind, screaming about the spirits that tormented her. She was eventually sent to an asylum, leaving behind a place that would forever be tainted by her terror. But the strange events didn't stop there. Other residents of the vicarage experienced their own share of paranormal phenomena. Shadows moved across rooms, cold drafts blew through areas with no windows, and many described a sense of being watched, hearing footsteps. Now, the vicarage still stands, and if you're feeling brave, you can even spend the night there. It's been converted into a guest house, and people come from all corners of the world to experience the supernatural oddities for themselves. Some visit for the thrill of it, while others are more skeptical. But many who've stayed there report strange occurrences of their own. What makes the vicarage so unnerving isn't just its ghostly reputation, it's the isolation. Surrounded by thick, dense forests and miles away from any town, it feels like the vicarage is suspended in time. The spirits, it seems, have never left. The house is a place where the past and the supernatural seem to blend together, making it all the more unsettling. Number 2. The Hellfire Caves, United Kingdom. Not too far from London, in the small village of West Wycombe, you'll find the Hellfire Caves. A strange and fascinating place with dark history. These man-made caverns, dug into the chalk hills, stretch a quarter of a mile underground, and they've been part of the area for centuries. Built in the 17th century for Sir Francis Dashwood, the caves were originally meant to provide work for locals during a tough economic time. But they weren't just for work. They became infamous as a secret meeting place for Sir Francis Dashwood's Hellfire Club. The club, founded in the 18th century, wasn't about polite conversation or socializing. It was a society that dabbled in pagan rituals, black magic, and a lot of questionable activities that would shock anyone who heard about them. Though the club operated under different names at the time, it became known later on as the Hellfire Club because of its reputation. The caves have served many purposes throughout history. During World War II, there were even plans to use them as an air raid shelter. Today, though, they're open to the public, and you can visit and explore the twisting tunnels where all of this strange history unfolded. Since they were opened as a tourist attraction in 1951, they've drawn curious visitors interested in their haunting past. The caves are notorious for the ghost stories. The most famous spirit is Suki, a maid who was tragically unalived in a cruel prank. Many believe her ghost still roams the caves, but she is not the only spirit you might encounter. There are also claims that Benjamin Franklin, who was a frequent visitor of the Hellfire Club, may also haunt the site. The caves have been the subject of paranormal investigations, including a famous one by the Most Haunted team in 2003. They reported hearing the sound of babies crying and even seeing stones being thrown, events that add to the mysterious reputation of the place. If you're brave enough to venture into the Hellfire Caves, you'll be stepping into a place that holds centuries of dark history, all in a place that's not too far from the busy life of London. Number 1. St Finbarr's Hospital, Ireland. Located in the heart of Cork, Ireland, St Finbarr's Hospital, formerly known as the Cork District Lunatic Asylum, has a dark past that continues to haunt its halls. Built back in 1806, it was originally intended to care for those with mental illnesses, but instead, it became infamous for its brutal treatment of patients and the countless passings that occurred within its walls. Back then, the asylum was overcrowded, and the conditions were dreadful. Most patients were left without proper care, and the treatment methods were harsh and often inhumane. Electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and even forced confinement were common practices, and they did nothing but add to the suffering of those already struggling. It's said that the spirits of these people never left, and the hospital's history of neglect has led to it being known as one of the most haunted places in Ireland. Reports from visitors and staff tell chilling stories. People have claimed to see the figure of a woman in old-fashioned nurse's attire wandering the halls, only for her to disappear when they approach. Others have heard strange noises, footsteps in empty corridors, faint whispers, and even moans and cries coming from nowhere. The most unsettling reports talk about objects moving on their own, lights flickering, doors slamming shut, and things being tossed across rooms with no one in sight. But perhaps the most haunting stories come from those who believe the spirits of the patients who passed there are still stuck in the asylum, their souls unable to move on. Some say the air feels heavier, as if it's filled with the remaining presence of those who suffered in silence for so many years. Today, St Finbarr's is no longer a hospital, but the memories of those lost remain. Whether it's the cold drafts in the empty rooms, or the eerie feeling that someone or something is watching, St Finbarr's Hospital still gives off an unsettling energy. And for those who dare to visit, it's not just the history that haunts you. It's the feeling that the spirits of those who suffered might still be there, waiting to be heard.